Hey, Larken Rose here, and a bunch of people have been mentioning to me the interview that Russell Brand did on some BBC show, and I finally got to watch it, and it's just kind of depressing and frustrating. Um, okay, Russell recognizes that there's something horribly wrong in the world, like whoopee doo. Okay, that doesn't take a huge amount of brilliance, and he cares about it, which is nice. Like, but again, whoopee doo. Like, lots of people see that something's wrong and wish it wasn't. And his solution, well, first of all, is pretty darn vague, which he admits. He doesn't really have much of a plan, but when, pressed on it, he basically said, well, socialist egalitarianism and a revolution and mass wealth redistribution and robbery, because that just led to a wonderful utopia in Red China and Soviet Russia and Cuba and the rest of them, didn't it? Yeehaw. So it's frustrating for the billionth time to hear somebody recognize something is horribly wrong and then to advocate something just as bad or worse because they don't really recognize the problem. And I started to write a thing in response to that, and after about 2 sentences I said, wait, I've totally already written this before. So I'm going to read it. This is from my book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, which already addresses it. It was also funny to watch the interviewer just harping on democracy. You don't vote, because Russell said, I don't vote, because he sees it's sort of a ridiculous game. And, kudos for that. Way to go. But the interviewer, you don't vote. How can you complain? You don't even vote. Oh my gosh, you don't even engage in the statist ritual of going into a booth and pressing a button. So this, what I'm about to read, actually addresses both the democracy-worshipping bonehead statist interviewer and Russell Brand sort of being a doofus with his really bad idea for a solution to a problem, which at least he sees there's a problem, and then he condones an even bigger problem. So, yeah, instead of writing it all over again, I already wrote it once, so this is from The Most Dangerous Superstition. If you care, it's from page 151. Nearly everyone can see at least some problems with the government he lives under, whether it be corruption, warmongering, socialist redistribution, police state intrusions, or other oppressions. And many are desperate to find a solution to such problems. So they vote for this or that candidate, support this or that political movement or party, lobby for or against this or that legislation, and almost always end up disappointed with the results. They can easily identify and complain about various problems, but an actual solution always eludes them. The reason they are always disappointed is because the problem does not reside in the people called government. It resides in the minds of their victims. Tinkering with government cannot fix a problem that does not come from government. The dissatisfied voter fails to realize that it is his own view of reality, his own belief in authority, that is the root cause of most of society's problems. He believes that a ruling class is a natural, necessary, beneficial part of human society, and so all of his efforts focus on bickering over who should be in charge and on what the power of government should be used for. And you could totally see that in Russell's mentality. When he thinks of solutions, he thinks inside the box of statism. As a result, he is powerless from the beginning. Begging masters to be nice or asking for a new master never leads to freedom. Instead, such behaviors are clear indications that the person is not even free inside his own mind. And a man whose mind is not free will never be free in body. People are so accustomed to engaging in the cult rituals collectively referred to as politics, voting, lobbying, petitioning, campaigning, etc., that any suggestion that they not bother participating in such pointless and impotent endeavors amounts, in their eyes, to suggesting that they do nothing. Yeah, that's for you, bonehead interviewer, who is shocked and offended that Russell wouldn't vote. Because they view voting, whining, and begging as the entire spectrum of possibilities open to them when it comes to government, they are unable to even comprehend anything that might actually accomplish freedom. So when a voluntarist or anarchist explains both the problem and the way out of it but without presenting a new candidate to vote for, a new political party to support, or some new movement or campaign to get behind. In other words, without proposing anything that coincides with the superstition of government and authority, the average statist will complain that no solutions were offered. From their perspective, anyone who does not play the game of politics within the rules set down by the ruling class is, quote, doing nothing. Hear that, interviewer guy? They enthusiastically declare, you have to participate. They fail to realize that participating in the game created and controlled by tyrants is doing nothing. Nothing useful, at least. In truth, rather than some event needing to occur or some particular thing needing to be done, the real solution, the only solution to the problems involving government, comes from not doing certain things and from certain things not happening. In one sense, there is no positive, active solution to government. The ultimate solution is negative and passive. Stop advocating aggression against your neighbors. Stop engaging in rituals that condone the initiation of violence and reinforce the notion that some people have the right to rule. Stop thinking and speaking and acting in ways that reinforce the myth that normal people should be and must be beholden to some master, and should obey such a master rather than follow their own consciences. When people stop bowing at the altar of government, stop playing the game of tyrants, stop respecting arbitrary rules written by megalomaniacs, the problem will go away on its own. Being a mythical entity, authority does not need to be overthrown or voted out or reformed. The people need only stop imagining something that is not there and never was. If the people stopped allowing an irrational superstition to warp their perceptions, their actions would immediately and dramatically improve. Most aggression, which is now done in the name of authority, would cease. No one would issue commands, enforce commands, or feel an obligation to obey commands unless the commands themselves were seen as inherently justified based upon the situation, not based upon the one giving the command or his supposed authority. That alone would eliminate the vast majority of theft, extortion, intimidation, harassment, coercion, terrorism, assault, and murder which human beings now perpetrate against one another. When the people recognize and accept no master, they will have no master. Ultimately, their bondage and the means to escape it exists entirely inside their own minds. Human society does not need anything added to it to fix most of its problems, nor does it need the institution of some new system or the implementation of some new master plan. Russell Brand. Instead, it needs to have one thing, one all-pervasive, extremely destructive thing removed from society: the belief in authority and government. What will make things work is not any centralized plan, not any authoritarian agenda, but the mutually voluntary interaction of many individuals, each serving his own values and following his own conscience. Of course, this does not fit at all with the way almost everyone was trained to think, that society needs a master plan with leaders who will make it happen. In truth, what society needs most is the complete lack of a master plan and the complete absence of authoritarian leaders to whom the people must surrender their free will and judgment. The solution is not to add some new thing to society, but simply to understand and dispel the most dangerous superstition. So, that about covers it. And, Russell Brand, I'm glad you care. I'm glad you see there's a problem. But you really need to rethink what's inside your own head, because all you're doing is condoning a new, massive, authoritarian plan of initiating violence. And that's what wealth redistribution is. And whenever it's so tempting when people believe in authority to see a problem and say, I know better, my ideas should be forced on everybody else. And that's exactly what Russell Brand is doing. I know how things should be, and there should be a big monstrous authority forcing the world to be the way I think it should be. that doesn't ever work. It's not ever moral. It never leads to peace. It never leads to freedom. It never leads to justice. It leads to bloodshed and mayhem and death and destruction. The only thing that will lead to peace and justice is when people say, I see a problem, and the problem is people imagining that their ideas should be forced on others. You do away with that, and the problem is gone. And that's completely a matter of people fixing the superstitions and assumptions and paradigms inside their own heads. And so far, Russell Brand is doing nothing to make that happen. He's just trying to recycle an old authoritarian, hugely destructive, bogus idea for a new master plan, because he doesn't at all see the actual problem. He sees symptoms of a problem. He realizes something's wrong. Good for you. Russell Brand, the problem is still firmly lodged inside your freaking head. Fix that, and then you might have some prayer of influencing society for the better.